Hello there, Professor. First time to Pendleton? It's as close as you can get to Nye County without actually having to step foot in it. You're going to be familiar with our victim, Manuel Molinas.
Drug dealer we just arrested for the murder of Jessica Marnier. He's connected to Beatrice Salazar. What's he doing in a Pendleton jail cell?
A few years back, feds decided they needed a facility to handle their more sensitive prisoner transfers in and out of the southwest United States. Someplace off the radar. Someplace like Pendleton. So they wrote a big check to the town council and upgraded their existing jailhouse in exchange for occasionally taking over the place. Our tax dollars at work.
I thought this building looked a little too metropolitan for a town of 35. Isn't that officer one of ours?
Yes, he is, but Sergeant Lip's been tapped before by the feds to coordinate this kind of transfer. Their plan was to quietly move Molinas out of our lockup and into this undisclosed location, then hold him here until he could be interviewed by a federal prosecutor and formally transferred into federal custody.
Not a bad plan. I wonder what went wrong.
Looks like everything. Okay, I don't need to tell you. This is now priority number one. Molinas' transfer was on a need-to-know basis. The first I heard of it, the sheriff and the deputy director of the FBI had me on the speakerphone, screaming that somebody dropped the ball. So I got my ass out of there and secured the scene.
Is Agent Huntby still missing?
Yes. And based on his apparent effort to sabotage your handling of the DNA evidence in the Salazar case, the FBI strongly suspects he was a mole for Salazar, and now officially considers his disappearance UFAP.
Unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, meaning he's a fugitive, and very likely a suspect in this homicide. Sergeant Lip should consider himself a very lucky man. Whoever broke in here to silence Molinas wouldn't have wanted to leave a living witness. We'll need to get a full statement from him. Looks like a small caliber automatic. A 22, maybe a 25. From what I've observed of the victim's wounds, this could be our murder weapon, but I'm letting myself get ahead of the evidence, aren't I? Let's see what Doc Robbins has to tell us at autopsy. Yellow powder. We'll want to get that back to the lab. The cell was locked during the shooting. We don't know exactly where the shooter was standing as he fired, but that powder might indicate his position. The keys are in the lock. Our shooter might have unlocked it, but he didn't need to open the cell door in order to shoot Molines. This digital recorder stored all the footage from the security cameras in the station. The hard drive's been crushed. We might be able to put it back together at the lab, but it'll probably take weeks to do that, plus salvage any data on it, and that's if we're lucky. I think we might learn more by just putting the case back together. Certainly be a better use of our time.
Hey.
Sergeant Lip, I'm Ray Langston. My partner and I are with the Las Vegas Crime Lab.
Yeah, great. But please, call me Tim. This is just a spectacular screw-up.
That's a pretty serious head wound you have there, Tim. Looks like you've lost quite a bit of blood. You might want to get that looked at right away.
You know, it must look a lot worse than it feels right now. Honestly, I feel okay. And if you don't mind, I'd like to stay here as long as you might need me. No, I didn't. Whatever it was, knocked me out in one hit. Mr. Molines was here awaiting his interview and formal transfer into federal custody. I'd say approximately an hour before the federal authorities were scheduled to arrive, around maybe 8 p.m. or thereabouts, this tall and, if I remember correctly, Hispanic male wearing a suit, he enters the facility and presents FBI credentials. I turned around to reach for the paperwork, and bam! That's the last thing I remember. I woke up behind the desk here, and then I went to check on the condition of the prisoner. I observed that he'd been shot multiple times, and that he was dead.
What did you do next?
I called it in. Tended to my head injury as best I could, and just waited for you guys to show up.
You didn't observe any further sign of the shooter, or whether he had an accomplice?
I didn't see anything. He was long gone, or they were gone. I don't know if he had help. Unfortunately, the assailant disabled our surveillance. He smashed the recording unit to pieces, what's left of that DVR over there. I don't remember the name on the identification. I'm sorry. I thought I got a really good look at it, too, because I didn't recognize the fella, but it's all real foggy to me right now.
I understand that this kind of prisoner transfer is on a need-to-know basis, but is it standard operating procedure to post a single guard?
No, it isn't. But in this case, it was necessary because, well, you might find this a little hard to believe, but our budget's been cut pretty radically, so the truth is, we couldn't afford to assign an additional officer. We were definitely whistling through the graveyard, I know that now, hoping we could get away with this one, but we were wrong.
Who made the final decision that you alone would transport and protect Mr. Molines?
I did, actually. The sheriff ordered the prisoner transfer, but I'm the sergeant in charge of operational command. That means duty assignments, tactical protocols, and budget outlays. I was the one who evaluated our risk assessment on this one, and I was wrong. Dead wrong.
We all make mistakes, Tim.
Yeah. Only this mistake cost a man his life, Mr. Langston. When federal authorities need the building, the sheriff and his deputy actually work out of his house. Can you believe that? There's just not much crime here in Pendleton. Not much of anything here, really. From what I remember, he was tall, approximately 6'1". Hispanic male, between 200 and 225 pounds, clean cut. I mean, I don't think he would have caught me off guard if he hadn't looked like a federal prosecutor or FBI agent. Nope. After I regained consciousness, I opened up the cell in order to check on the condition of the prisoner. And that's when I observed the multiple bullet wounds to Mr. Melendez, and I quickly determined that he had died of those wounds. Hey, let me know if you find something, okay? Maybe you guys can help save my job.
We'll do our best, Tim. Now, if you don't mind, I'm also a doctor, so I'd like to take a look at your head wound there.
Yeah, okay.
Good news here is you're going to live, but you're going to need stitches. So now that you've given us your statement, Tim, I am not taking no for an answer. We're going to get you to the hospital.
Okay, I understand. Thanks, Doc.
Well done. I believe we have enough evidence here to begin processing at the lab. It's your call. That's the rag Sergeant Lip applied to his head to staunch the bleeding. Blood. Sergeant Lip may have been pistol whipped. It's a fragment of some kind. It looks like it got wedged in the slide. Whatever it is, it's underneath the blood, which means it was there before the blood was. He left it for us. I'm sure Sergeant Lip wouldn't mind if we processed a sample of his DNA. I'll call the coroner to pick up the body. We need to get a reference sample of the ammunition fired by this pistol to compare against the slugs found in the victim. This pistol fires .22 caliber long rifle cartridges. Unfortunately, not a particularly unique type of ammunition. It's a favorite among amateur hunters as well as professional assassins. Looks like there's a small piece of it missing. You know that shard we found wedged in the gun at the crime scene? I think it just might fit in this gap. Let's try it. Yes, a perfect fit. Pollen of the southwestern wood lily. This flower is native to Nevada, but it's rare. Blood on the gun here is Sergeant Lip's, which means it was definitely used to strike him in the head.
Ray, where are we now with Molina's case? I read Sergeant Lip's statement.
Well, Sergeant Lip isn't telling us the whole truth.
How do you know?
We recovered a gun at the crime scene, and wedged in the slide, we found a broken piece of the unit which records all the surveillance footage. Now, not only was that shard stuck in the gun, but it was also underneath some blood. Blood which turns out to belong to our very own Sergeant Lip. It means that little piece of plastic was in there before Sergeant Lip was struck in the head.
But according to Sergeant Lip, the assailant entered, presented him with ID, and then when this sergeant turned his back, the assailant knocked him out. You'd think he would have noticed the assailant smashing up surveillance equipment before he got knocked out.
You'd think so. You'd also think Sergeant Lip wouldn't turn his back on a guy like that maybe he'd even draw his own weapon. But for some reason, that's not how it went down.
Hello there, it's Doc Robbins down in the morgue. I've finished the autopsy on Manuel Molina's. So whenever you're ready, I'm available to review my findings with you. Nice to see you. How can I help? I found 2 bullet wounds, both potentially fatal, and both were consistent with the damage you'd expect from a small caliber hollow point. One bullet penetrated his heart practically dead center. It severed the pulmonary and aortic valves and lodged in the ventricular wall. That alone would have killed him, However, I also found what I believe was the first shot. It penetrated the frontal bone of his cranium, just above the glabella. The bullet obliterated his brain tissue in an expanding channel from the entrance wound. It then bounced off the back of his skull and continued its path of destruction until it came to rest in the cerebellum. Death was quick, if not painless.
Well, this wasn't a mercy killing. One to the head, one to the heart usually suggests a professional killer.
Neither slug was particularly difficult to extract. Here they are. Absolutely. I have a sample ready for you. Here. I found a glob of what looks like mucus on the victim's face. I collected some for you.
Someone spat on his face?
That's what it looks like. You see, the less viscous bits appeared to flow down the side of his face. So unless he was already lying on the floor when he was shot, it occurred post-mortem. Anytime.